You're emigrating to the USA? Ha! You're going to be sued within the first 6 months. Well, those were the words of the once famous Formula One racing driver, Jody Scheckter, and those of you who do follow Formula One, in 1979 he was world champion, and we happened at that time, just before emigrating, to be at a resort in South Africa watching a golden sunset as the sun dipped into the sea, and he said we were going to be sued within the first 6 months. Well, my wife and I choked on our gin and tonic, because after all, Jody should know he'd taken some of his racing millions and he'd invested them in an electronics company in Atlanta. Well, we went and settled in Atlanta, Georgia, and we stayed in a nice yuppie community that was occupied by successful businessmen and, of course, Delta Airlines captains. And I can assure you that in the first 6 months, every single agreement that was put in front of us, anything that we had to sign, we read thoroughly, once, twice, 3 times, and sometimes I even read them out aloud in front of the people, making sure that I understood every nuance of that agreement. How many attorneys present here? Oh, good. Oh, in the other Rotary clubs there were a lot of attorneys. Well, we never got sued in that first 6 months. But then came the fateful day, and that was the day that our neighbour, 2 houses down, decided to test out his video tape recorder. They didn't have smartphones in those days. And there he was, recording on the front lawn of his home, his 16-year-old blue-eyed, blonde-haired daughter in a bikini dancing around with her little puppy. And he on his doorstep, shooting towards the street, when into frame came a blue Honda Civic. And the young man behind the steering wheel thumped his friend in the front seat, pointed at the beautiful girl. They both looked at her in her bikini, dancing, and proceeded to drive, boom, into the brick mailbox. Well, my son leapt out of the Civic, ran 150 yards up to our house, burst into the door and said, Oh, I've just smashed into the Ungero's house. Ungero? Strange name, but I said to my wife, oh dear, now we are going to be sued. She said, no, I know the wife, she's the sweetest thing. I'm really sure that, I don't know, get down there, go and talk to them. Surely maybe you could, discuss something. Well, I looked up on the internet and discovered that this man was an extremely successful businessman, a successful negotiator, and very legally savvy. And I was convinced we were going to be sued. But down I went, was horrified to see the damage, but thank heavens it wasn't their house. Stepped up to the front door, pressed on the doorbell, and found that inside they were in peals of laughter. They were watching the video. And then the man came to the door. And guess who he was? He was a Richard Ungero. And yes, you've heard the name, Richard, Downtown Rotary. He's the program chair, the man in the yellow shirt down there. And this is the man who was about to sue me that time in Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, oh, Les, come on. A brick mailbox is not that important. I can do with a wooden mailbox. All the other neighbours, you've got a wooden mailbox. Just get your son to clear up the rubble, and I'll put up a wooden mailbox and everything will be fine. But before you go, let me tell you this. I would recommend, if you can afford to pay for the damage to your wife's car, pay it. Do not report it to the insurance company, because in the end it's going to cost you more than the repairs to the vehicle. And since it's on private property, do not report it to the police. I went back to my wife and he said, do not report it to the police. This is a setup. We are going to get sued. If I don't report it, he's going to be able to sue me for one hell of a lot more. She said, come on, Liz, calm down, it's going to be okay. And, thank you, Richard, he didn't sue us. In fact, Richard went on to say that that wooden mailbox, okay, was the best investment that he has ever made in his entire life. And here's why. He got to meet Robin, who had smashed his mailbox, after Robin graduated from UCF and together with 4 of his buddies did his very first movie. And after he'd gotten to Chicago and actually got Siskel and Ebert to watch it, they said to him, "You haven't a clue what you've got in your hands. You have to, first of all, change the ending and then get this movie to the Sundance Film Festival. But you've got to get it from 16 millimeter onto 35 mil." Suddenly, after Robin had put up the first 35,000 to shoot this movie, he had to find another 120,000. He asked me to introduce him to all my business friends in Atlanta, Georgia. And I said, "No, Robin, I'm not going to do that. You know who they are. You have the guts. Get out there, go talk to them." And the very first one he went to was the brick mailbox man. And that man put up the first $25,000 and provided Robin with the credibility to go and raise the rest of the money. He got it to the Sundance Film Festival, and that movie at age 24 was the Blair Witch Project, which grossed over $300 million worldwide and was in the Guinness Book of Records as the then time most profitable independent movie in the history of Hollywood. Anybody remember the Blair Witch Project? Yeah, I see some hands. Well, I must say I'm too ashamed to tell you what Richard's investment turned into. It was a disgusting amount of money. And if you twist his arm, he may tell you. But he still today believes that that's the best investment of his entire life. But it gave Fran and I the opportunity to get to know the Angero family, and for me to watch Richard build some incredible companies in this country. Burger King, Wendy's. He became the Senior Vice President of Operations for Blockbuster Video and took it to the enormous size that you might remember Blockbuster was. And then he was asked to leave there, and for an almost unheard of coffee company out of Seattle, he was asked to open up the eastern half of the USA. Well, it was with some trepidation that I asked Richard to read my 2 books. The first one, New Job Fast Start, 7 Steps to be Seen Mastering Your New Job Quickly. And that's for job entrants, people who go into a job. These days, a lot of corporations do an outstanding job of the sign-on process, and they even may have videos on company policies, sexual harassment, benefits. But still, here in the USA, more than 85% of companies, when that is over, take that new job entrant, walk them across to their workstation, introduce them to whomever might be there at the time, and then dump them. And they have to learn the job by trial and error. Now, HR departments can't create training videos for every single job in a company. But I recommend that CEOs and C-level executives implement a policy where job entrants are expected to be proactive. And if you give them the things to ask and the things to do from day one, they can very quickly capture the content of a job. And I asked Richard to look at the book, and I was quite stunned when he insisted on applying 4 what he said were important principles to him. The one was, is it true of current business practice? Is it fair to new employees, supervisors, managers, and executives? Will it build goodwill and better in-company relationships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Gentlemen and ladies, I would recommend those principles to those of you here. Or maybe you know them already. Well, I was stunned when Richard, with that kind of a background, then went on to say, if those books were available at the time he was building those companies, that they would have been mandatory reading in all of those high growth companies. And that has been just enormous help to me. This man has provided credibility for my son to get a bite at the American dream, and he is also doing the same for me at my old age. And this man is true to his principles as a good Rotarian. And I'm just very grateful to him and the Rotary people who've supported me and listened to the little message that I have to say. These days, I have a passion for helping CEOs and C-level executives, even people in government organizations and non-profits, in helping them bridge that treacherous gap between the sign-on process and being successful on the job. And I love to be able to get in there. It's a real low-cost consulting, but with a phenomenal return for each of the companies that actually attempt to do it. Now, you may ask me, what are these 7 steps? So if you think of the jobs you're in now or the jobs you've had in the past, every job, it doesn't matter what the job is, whether it's a doctor, an attorney, whether it's a manufacturing person, whether it's a service person, every job has an environment. It has a flow with a beginning and the end. It has frequencies in it. It needs checklists for certain things. Every job has faults, and every job should have a patrol pattern and inspection sequence. And I have a friend named Fuzz here who may do a better job of explaining to you what those 7 steps are. Hello, I'm Les Cowie, and thanks for joining us for this short presentation in which I introduce you to the 7 things that apply to every job. Every job, no matter what the job is, they apply. You can take a job and you can look at it from these 7 X-ray points of view and quickly find out what it will take for you to be seen mastering the new job quickly. And the 7 steps are these. 1, environments. 2, flow. 3, frequency. 4, ins and outs. 5, checklists. 6, faults. And 7, patrol. Yes, every job has an environment and can be defined as an internal environment, which are the things closest to you that take place in the specific space for the job. But every job also has external environments where you interact with things beyond the immediate job space. Every job has a flow. It has a beginning point, it has an end point, and there are process steps along the way. There are many processes that may start at different points, many that run in parallel to that main basic sequence. Every job has frequencies. There are things in the job that happen more frequently than other things. And there are many things that happen in the job so infrequently that it may take you quite a long time to learn how to perform them. For every process in the process flow, each process will have ins and outs. And these can be easily identified. Each process has materials, parts, components, people, systems. There are things that you need in order to apply the steps in the process to produce the required output, which may be products, it may be information, it may be a host of different things that move on to another processing point or get used immediately by other people. So it's important to understand the ins, the outs, and the processes that must be applied to them. In practice, people find that it's really valuable to create checklists for the very critical processes. Checklists help to learn how to perform the job in the correct sequence and to the correct specification. Then, unfortunately, but it happens, every job has faults. And these faults may happen at random, but what is interesting is that some faults happen more frequently than others. And if you can get on top of those, this will help you master your job quickly. Now, since you learn how to do the job correctly, and you learn how to recognize when the job is running correctly, and since faults happen, it makes sense that if you patrol the area of your job, whether that's a geographic space or whether it's a computer monitor and screen with information on it, by performing a patrol pattern and inspection sequence, you can anticipate and recognize when a symptom happens that warns you of a serious fault developing, and you can resolve it and fix it quickly. So, if you look at the job from these 7 points of view: 1, environments; 2, flow; 3, frequency; 4, ins and outs; 5, checklists; 6, faults; and 7, your patrol pattern and inspection sequence, you should quickly learn how to be successful in that job. What amazes me, and by the way, one doesn't make a sales presentation out of things, but if you are wanting to get more information about it, if you look at www.lescowie.com and also lescowieconsulting.com, there's a lot of free information there. And the books are available on Amazon and Kindle. The thing that I find, and what really gets me excited, is I can take someone coming into a brand new job, and within 3 to 5 days, they will capture all of that, and they will, from the second week onwards, show that they are mastering the new job. There is a trick to it, and that's in that area of frequencies. And some of you may have heard of the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle says in any activity, 20% of it happens 80% of the time. And if you think about your job, there are things that you do over and over and over and over and over, and then there's some things that you have to do that don't happen that often. And if you question what really is experience, experience is sticking around long enough until the low frequency items have happened enough times for you to remember them. It's about frequencies. And if you can take a new job entrant and you can get them into that 20 or 30% that happens 80 to 90% of the time, rapidly you can get them into an extremely high level of productivity. And they get noticed. They get noticed because customer service improves. They get noticed because employee interaction improves. They get noticed because they're happy in their jobs. So I hope you can understand why I get passionate about helping people, especially young graduates, to avoid getting dumped after they've had such great study time, come into a job and don't know where to start. Military veterans who come back from Afghanistan, places like that, and start a new job. Get them started fast. And even baby boomers, those of us who are retired and get tired of playing golf and fishing and want to get back maybe into a less stressful job, it's even helpful for them. And I'm passionate about that. And I hope you found that interesting. I want to point out one thing. The little fuzz animation was done for me by a business student from UCF, and he's sitting right there. Jamori, put up your hands so that they see where you are. He's also an animator, and he started today animating for me an animation of a thing I call the profit pillar, which is in the third book, Getting More with Less. And in that, it helps people find places where they can reduce cost before you eliminate labor. Most companies, when they get into trouble, chop labor and then discover that they've taken out the heart of their business and they cannot deliver customer service or quality like they used to. So, an astounding young man who's here for his first Rotary meeting, and I just want to thank the people over here. John, you guys have been, and Tom have been just so hospitable and in welcoming Jamori today. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Facility come to your school, or how do you?
Yes, I do. What I do, anyone who goes to the website, signs up their name, or calls me on the phone, I'm happy to give a 1-hour free consultancy, and then I can come and visit on site. And if you have a need and we identify the dollar value that you can save by implementing it, then I come on site and I recommend that we pick together some 1 or 2 mentors, because the second book is the in-company mentor edition, and those mentors help all new job entrants apply the methodology. And then I'll participate with you through the first couple to make sure it's a policy that works smoothly. Thank you for that question. Yes. Oh, the question is, why am I so passionate about it, and have I had a bad experience? Over the 35 years I've been in the USA, I was blessed by IBM in Atlanta when I was literally kicked out of South Africa for starting the first independent black television station there. IBM put me with a venture capital company, and so in the 35 years I've moved around to a tremendous number of different types of company where we've bought in a major stock holding, restructured the company, built it up, sold it, or in some cases we did an IPO. And it just horrified me. I thought I was coming to this wonderful country that had no racial problems, no political problems, and was wonderful to employees. Everything I learned in university in South Africa came from American college books. But I found that the way we treat employees sometimes is horrendous. And in every one of these companies that we went into, we found it was necessary to build the company by training the people. And so I hadn't intended to write a book. My wife contracted cancer, and so it was necessary for me to be a caregiver. And she said, you have to write the books. And I did, and that has allowed me to get in with companies, and I get so excited when it works. And I'm passionate about getting excited. Thank you. All right, that looks like we've got the questions. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. We have a certificate for Les from George's Restaurant that people catered our lunch today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming. Maureen, thank you for the animation. And Rich, thank you for having your mailbox out there. All right, I have a few things. We raised $41.